Right? If you're over 70 and still driving, and good on you for that, and you need to hear this, because something is quietly changing that could directly affect your license, and most people don't even know it's happening yet. The DVLA has been reviewing the rules around how drivers over 70 renew their licenses, and the changes being discussed could mean mandatory eye tests, stricter medical checks, and even your doctor or optician reporting directly to the DVLA. No more simple self-declaration. Now, I'm not here to worry you. I'm here to make sure you're prepared, because knowing what's coming puts you in control. In this video, I'm walking you through everything you need to know. What's changing, what it means for your license, and exactly what steps to take right now. If you find this useful, hit that. It really helps. Now, let's get into it. So let's start at the very beginning, because I think it's really important you understand why this is happening in the first place. Because once you understand the why, everything else makes a lot more sense, and honestly, it stops feeling scary and starts feeling manageable. For years, decades actually, the system for drivers over 70 in the UK has worked in a pretty straightforward way. When you hit 70, your license doesn't just carry on automatically like it does when you're younger. Instead, you have to renew it every 3 years. And the way that renewal has worked up until now is largely based on what's called self-declaration. That basically means you tell the DVLA whether you're medically fit to drive. You fill in the form, you confirm your health is up to scratch, and in most cases, your license gets renewed without anyone double-checking. Simple, right? And for the vast majority of people, it's worked just fine. But here's the thing. There have been some high-profile cases in recent years. Accidents, sadly some fatal ones, where older drivers were behind the wheel with undeclared medical conditions. Conditions that, had someone known about them, might have meant those drivers were taken off the road sooner. And those cases sparked a very serious conversation in Parliament, in road safety groups, and eventually inside the DVLA itself. The question being asked was this: is self-declaration really enough? Or do we need a system that actually verifies that drivers over 70 are medically fit, rather than just trusting them to say so? Now, I want to be really clear here, and I'll keep coming back to this throughout the video. This conversation is not about punishing older drivers. It is not about saying that people over 70 are automatically dangerous on the roads. That would be completely unfair and frankly untrue. Millions of people over 70 are outstanding, careful, experienced drivers who are safer behind the wheel than plenty of people half their age. The concern is specifically about the small number of cases where medical conditions that affect driving are going undetected. And the question is how to catch those cases without penalizing everyone else. That's the tightrope the DVLA is trying to walk right now, and it's actually quite a difficult one. So what does this mean in practice? What are the actual changes being considered? Well, the biggest one, the one that's been getting the most attention, is the potential introduction of mandatory eye tests for drivers over 70. At the moment, when you renew your license, there's no requirement to prove you've had an eye test. You just confirm you can meet the minimum eyesight standard, and that's largely taken on trust. What the DVLA and the government have been consulting on is whether that should change, whether from a certain point, renewing your license at 70 or every 3 years after that should require you to actually provide proof of a recent eye test. Not just say your eyesight is fine, but show it. And when you think about it from a safety perspective, it's not a completely unreasonable idea. Our eyesight does change as we get older. That's just biology, it's not an insult. And it changes gradually, which means sometimes we don't notice it happening ourselves. You might think your vision is perfectly fine, but an optician might spot something that you haven't. Conditions like cataracts, glaucoma, macular degeneration, these can develop slowly, quietly, and they can genuinely affect your ability to drive safely before you're even aware there's a problem. So the thinking behind mandatory eye tests is that it would catch those issues earlier, keep everyone safer, and actually protect drivers too, because the last thing anyone wants is to cause an accident they didn't even realize they were at risk of causing. Now, the government launched a formal consultation on this back in January of this year, and it ran through to the end of March. What that means is they were gathering views from the public, from medical professionals, from road safety experts, from drivers themselves, all of it feeding into a decision that, once made, could change how license renewal works for everyone over 70. The outcomes of that consultation haven't been fully announced yet as of the time I'm recording this, but the direction of travel is pretty clear. The mood in Westminster and at the DVLA is that the current self-declaration system needs strengthening. The question is just exactly how and how quickly. And that's why, whether you're 68 and approaching 70, already past it, or somewhere in your 70s or 80s and due for your next renewal, this is something you want to be ahead of. Because being prepared is everything. People who get caught off guard by these changes, people who show up for their renewal without having had a recent eye test, or who haven't thought about whether their health has changed since last time, those are the people who could find themselves in a really difficult position. And I don't want that to be you. That's genuinely why I'm making this video. Let's talk about the medical side of things more broadly, because the eye test discussion is actually just one piece of a bigger picture. There's also been serious talk about tightening up the medical declaration process more generally. Right now, as I said, you self-declare. But what's being discussed, and in some ways is already beginning to happen, is a shift toward a system where your GP and other healthcare professionals play a much more active role. We're talking about a world where your doctor might be required to notify the DVLA directly if they believe you have a condition that affects your ability to drive safely. Not just leaving it to you to disclose, but having medical professionals take on some of that responsibility. Now, I know that for some of you, that might feel a bit uncomfortable. It might feel like an invasion of privacy, or like suddenly the decision about whether you can drive is being taken out of your hands, and those are completely valid feelings. I understand them completely. Your license is your independence. For many of you, it's how you get to the shops, how you visit your grandchildren, how you get to hospital appointments, how you stay connected to your community. The idea of someone else having a say in that feels deeply personal because it is deeply personal. But here's the way I'd encourage you to think about it. If your GP spots something, if there's a medical concern that genuinely does affect your driving, wouldn't you rather know about it? Wouldn't you rather have that conversation with your doctor in a calm, planned way, rather than find out in a much more traumatic way? And for the vast majority of drivers over 70, the honest answer is that there's nothing to worry about. If you're fit, if your eyesight is good, if you're managing any health conditions properly, and they're not affecting your driving, then these changes don't take anything away from you. They just make it more official, more verified. Think of it as the same kind of check you'd want a pilot to go through before flying a plane. You want to know they're fit to fly, right? It's the same principle, right? And this is a good moment, actually, to ask you something. If you're finding this video helpful, if this is information that matters to you or someone you love, please do hit the like button right now. Honestly, it takes 2 seconds, it costs nothing, and it genuinely helps this video reach more people who need to see it. There are so many drivers over 70 out there who have no idea these changes are coming, and your like helps this video find them. So go on, hit that thumbs up, and let's keep going, because there's still plenty more you need to know. So let's talk about what you should actually do with all of this, because information is only useful if it leads to action, right? The first thing, and this is probably the most important practical step you can take right now, is to know when your license expires. This sounds obvious, but you'd be amazed how many people don't know off the top of their head. Your license renewal date is right there on the front of your photo card license. Check it today, write it down. Put a reminder in your phone, stick a note on the fridge, tell your spouse, whatever works for you. You can start your renewal up to 90 days before it expires, so you've got a 3-month window and you want to use it. Don't leave it to the last minute, especially with potential new requirements coming in that might mean you need to gather extra documentation. The second thing is to book an eye test if you haven't had one recently. Even if mandatory eye tests haven't been confirmed yet as a formal requirement, it is absolutely the smart move to have one. Not just for the purposes of your license, but for your own health and your own safety. If your vision has changed, and it may have, even slightly, without you realizing, an optician will tell you. And if you need new glasses or updated lenses, you'd much rather know that before your renewal, not during it. Most opticians offer NHS eye tests for free if you're over 60, so there's really no barrier there. Get it booked. Treat it as part of your driving MOT. The third thing is to have an honest conversation with yourself, and if needed, with your GP, about your health. Are there any conditions you're managing that could, in theory, affect your driving? Not conditions that do affect your driving, necessarily, but ones that could: diabetes, heart conditions, epilepsy, certain neurological conditions. All of these are ones the DVLA already has an interest in. If you have something like that and you've been managing it well and driving safely for years, that's absolutely fine. But make sure it's properly documented with your GP, make sure your medical records reflect the current state of your health, and make sure your doctor is aware you're a driver. That way, if the DVLA ever does ask for a medical report, everything is in order and there are no nasty surprises. Now, there's another dimension to all of this that I haven't touched on yet, and it's one that I think is really important, and that's the emotional side. Because a lot of people, when they start hearing about potential license restrictions or additional checks for older drivers, feel something quite deep. They feel defensive. They feel a bit indignant maybe. Like, I've been driving for 50 years, I've never had an accident, and now suddenly I have to prove myself. And I completely understand that reaction, I really do. It feels unfair. It feels like being treated as less capable simply because of your age, when age alone tells you nothing about whether someone is a good driver. And the truth is, that instinct is partly right. Age alone tells you nothing. A 75-year-old who keeps themselves fit, has regular health checkups, has good eyesight, and has decades of careful driving experience behind them is almost certainly safer than a 25-year-old who's been driving for 3 years and drives too fast. Experience counts for an enormous amount. Judgment counts for an enormous amount. And no one, not the DVLA, not the government, not road safety campaigners, is seriously arguing otherwise. But the reality is also that our bodies do change as we age. That's not a criticism of anyone. It's just biology. And the question isn't whether any individual older driver is good or bad. The question is whether the system is designed to catch the relatively rare cases where someone is driving when they really shouldn't be, and whether the current system, which relies almost entirely on people telling the truth about their own health, is the best possible way to do that. And I think, if we're being honest, most of us would admit that there's probably room for improvement there. The good news, and I want to end on this because it's really important, is that the changes being discussed are not designed to take licenses away from people wholesale. They are designed to be targeted, proportionate, and fair. The goal is not to make it harder to drive when you're older. The goal is to make it smarter, to make sure the checks that are in place actually do what they're supposed to do. And if you go into this process informed, prepared, and proactive, there is absolutely no reason why these changes should stop you from driving for many more years to come. So here's your action plan in plain language. Check your license expiry date today. Book an eye test as soon as possible. Have an honest chat with your GP about any health conditions and make sure everything is documented. Renew early. Don't wait until the last minute. And keep an eye on announcements from the DVLA and the government, because the final rules coming out of that consultation are expected to be confirmed in the coming months, and you want to be ready when they are. You've worked hard your whole life, you've earned your independence, and a little preparation today is all it takes to protect it tomorrow.